Imagine a world where two superpowers had enough nuclear weapons to destroy the planet several times over. A world where a single misunderstanding, a radar error, or a political decision could trigger the end of civilization. This was the reality for nearly half a century. From 1947 to 1991, the world was locked in a tense global standoff known as the Cold War. Unlike previous wars, the United States and the Soviet Union never fought each other directly. Instead, they battled through politics, spies, propaganda, proxy wars, and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. It was a war fought in the shadows, a war of ideology, and a war that shaped the modern world. This is the story of the Cold War. At the end of World War II, in 1945, Europe was devastated. Cities were destroyed. Millions were dead. And two nations emerged as the world's new superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. During the war, they had been allies against Nazi Germany. But once the common enemy was gone, their differences became impossible to ignore. The United States promoted capitalism, democracy, and free markets. The Soviet Union promoted communism, where the government controlled the economy and political power. Each side believed their system was the future of humanity, and each believed the other system was a threat to the world. Tensions escalated quickly. In Eastern Europe, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin installed communist governments in countries like Poland, Hungary, and East Germany. Western leaders saw this as expansion. In 1946, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill gave a famous speech warning that an iron curtain had fallen across Europe. Europe was now divided between East and West, and the Cold War had begun. In 1947, President Harry Truman announced the Truman Doctrine, promising support to countries threatened by communism. Soon after, the United States launched the Marshall Plan, sending billions of dollars to rebuild Western Europe. The idea was clear: if countries became stable and prosperous, they would be less likely to turn communist. But the Cold War escalated further in 1948. The Soviet Union blocked all land access to West Berlin, hoping to force the Western powers out. Instead of retreating, the United States and its allies launched the Berlin Airlift. For nearly a year, cargo planes flew thousands of missions, delivering food, fuel, and supplies to the trapped city. The blockade failed, but the message was clear. The Cold War was becoming a global struggle. In 1945, the United States had a terrifying advantage. It possessed the atomic bomb. But in 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its own nuclear weapon. The nuclear arms race had begun. Both countries raced to build more powerful weapons. Soon, they developed hydrogen bombs, hundreds of times more destructive than the bombs dropped on Japan. By the 1960s, both superpowers had thousands of nuclear warheads. The strategy that defined this era was called mutually assured destruction, or MAD. The idea was chillingly simple. If either side launched a nuclear attack, the other side would retaliate, and both countries would be destroyed. Paradoxically, this balance of terror helped prevent direct war, because if either side attacked first, everyone would lose. Although the United States and Soviet Union never fought directly, they supported opposite sides in conflicts around the world. These conflicts became known as proxy wars. The first major example was the Korean War. In 1950, Communist North Korea invaded South Korea. The United States and United Nations supported South Korea, while China and the Soviet Union supported the North. After 3 brutal years and millions of casualties, the war ended in a stalemate. Korea remains divided today. Another major conflict was the Vietnam War. The United States attempted to stop communist forces in North Vietnam from taking control of the entire country. But after years of fighting and massive losses, the United States withdrew in 1973. 2 years later, Vietnam became a communist country. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union supported communist movements in many parts of the world, including Afghanistan, where Soviet troops invaded in 1979. The Cold War had truly become global. Came closest to nuclear war in October 1962. US spy planes discovered that the Soviet Union was building nuclear missile bases in Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida. President John F. Kennedy ordered a naval blockade of the island. For 13 days, the world watched nervously as the United States and Soviet Union stood on the brink of nuclear war. One wrong move could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. Finally, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba. In exchange, the United States secretly agreed to remove its missiles from Turkey. The crisis ended peacefully, but it terrified the world. Afterward, both sides began working to reduce nuclear tensions. In the 1970s, a period known as détente began. Relations between the United States and Soviet Union slightly improved. Both countries signed arms control agreements to limit nuclear weapons. American President Richard Nixon even visited Communist China in 1972, opening diplomatic relations. But tensions never fully disappeared. The Cold War continued for another decade. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was facing serious problems. Its economy was struggling, political control was weakening, and many Eastern European countries were demanding freedom. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms called glasnost and perestroika, aiming to modernize the system. But these changes accelerated the collapse. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Communist governments across Eastern Europe collapsed. Then, in 1991, the Soviet Union officially dissolved. After nearly 45 years, the Cold War was over. The Cold War never became the nuclear apocalypse many feared, but its impact still shapes the world today. It influenced global alliances, military strategies, political systems, and international relations. It divided nations, toppled governments, and brought humanity closer to nuclear destruction than ever before. Yet it also showed something remarkable. For decades, two superpowers with unimaginable weapons avoided direct war. The Cold War reminds us how fragile peace can be, and how important it is to protect it.